What's up guys, Max Tech Toy Box here, and today I am doing a video review of the Tesla Model 3 after 100,000 miles. Okay, if you guys have been following my channel, my father purchased a 2022 Model 3 roughly 2 years ago, and he does quite a bit of driving, roughly about 200 miles round trip every weekday. Okay, and so he just eclipsed over 100,000 miles, and so I thought it would be a good idea to do a review of how the Model 3 has held up after 100,000 miles. So first things first, my dad took delivery of his Tesla Model 3 on March 12th, 2022. Okay, so he has had the car for roughly 2 years and I want to say 4 months before he eclipsed that 100,000 mile mark. Today, currently, he has 101,783 miles on his Model 3. So the most pressing question that most people have about this is, what does that battery health look like, right? Because a lot of the times when you put that many miles on a vehicle, you usually get a lot of battery degradation, and we will get to that in a second. However, the thing that I want to make sure that I am expressing and being just fully transparent, of course, in order for my father to put that many miles on his vehicle, again, he drives quite a bit. So that means that he's driving 200 miles per day roughly every weekday. And also that means that he's doing a lot of draining his battery, not getting it super low, but then also charging his battery. Most of the charging that he does is level 2 charging. He doesn't use the supercharger too often. Okay, so that's important to note. He does use it from time to time, but mainly it's overnight charging, or at his work site he was able to use level 2 charging as well, so that you guys have an idea of how that battery takes a hit, because as you can imagine, just science, physics, the more you use the battery, the more you sort of drain it and fill it up with energy. That can take a toll on the battery. Okay, so this is, your mileage may vary. Obviously, if you have a Tesla but you've been using it for 10 years and you eclipse 100,000 miles, your battery health may be quite different than what my father's battery health is. Okay, so when my father ran the diagnostic study, and I'll go ahead and throw that picture on the screen, his battery health did come down to 85. So what does that mean? Well, 85 out of 100 after 100,000 miles is pretty damn good. Okay, just full disclosure, I was expecting it to drop quite more than that. My father the same, but 85 out of 100, like I said, over the course of 2 years, 100,000 miles, to me that's pretty good. Now in a different scenario, let's say if he had only traveled 30,000 miles and his battery health had dropped down to 85, well then I think it would be a different conversation that we would be having with you guys. 2 years later, dropping down by 15% for only 30,000 miles versus 2 years dropping down by 15% after 100,000 miles. Now, something of important note, when my father has been charging his vehicle, as I stated, he does drain it and then obviously charge it quite a bit. He started off by charging his battery to about 80%, then he would do 90% sometimes, and then 85%. So he was always within range of what Tesla was recommending. He really was never charging his battery to 100% ever, because he was never completely driving his battery to dead. Okay, and one of the gripes that myself, my dad, and I know just other Tesla users in general have with Tesla is their adaptive battery, I guess. I don't really know what they would call it, but after you drive your car for some time, the amount of miles that shows up on your dashboard is not the same amount of miles that it would show if the odometer was at 0, right? For example, the Tesla Model Y Performance, I think it's rated at 305 miles or something, but after I had it for a week or so, it was dropping down to 295 or something. Well, not a week or so, but after I had it for a couple of months, couple of weeks, it dropped down to 295 if I charged it to 100. Well, that doesn't necessarily tell you that the battery health has dropped by 10 miles. What it does is it learns your driving habits. So the number that you see on the odometer is very deceiving because it doesn't really tell you if you've actually have battery degradation. The only way you can find out if you have degradation is by you doing this test that my dad did, which I'll throw a link in the description. So if you guys have a Tesla and you want to end up doing this test, you can. But that gives you a true idea of what your battery health actually is. So just having your car for a little while, and because you're charging it to a certain percentage and it shows a different amount on the odometer, that's not a true number because it's picking up on your driving skills. If you are a more aggressive driver, and you speed quite a bit, well then that means that number is going to drop down lower, versus if you're a more conservative driver, that number will stay higher because you're not really burning as much electricity as a person that's more aggressive. So some other things that my dad wanted me to make sure that I mention here as well, the wear and tear on the vehicle. So the biggest thing, which really isn't that big, on the driver's side, where the motor controls, where you can adjust or move the seat back, adjust not the lower lumbar support, but you can adjust the seat, right? A screw came out on that side, and so it sort of sticks out a little bit. That's the biggest wear and tear that you really notice. The other thing is the hubcaps that came on the vehicle. He doesn't exactly know when, but they did crack, and so he has not been able to put those back on. He's not sure if that was around, I think 70,000 miles maybe is when that happened. And so because of that, he's been driving hubcapless, if you will. But that's pretty much the only wear and tear. Some other important things, a lot of people want to know about the service issues with cars, right? Longevity, if there was any other issues. Well, at around 7,000 miles, my dad did notice he had to take it to the service center because he was driving around 77 miles per hour. The car started to shake pretty violently. And so because of that, he took it to the service center to find out what was going on. Turns out that the foam that goes inside the tires, which is supposed to make it drive a little bit at a quieter volume, it came loose or something like that, and so it had to be replaced. I'll show pictures here so you guys can see what that looks like. A little shady, because on the actual invoice it doesn't say anything about this. It just says that they did a balance on the tire, they checked the other 3 tires, they drove it, and they fixed the issue. They didn't really state what happened, which obviously we have video evidence of, and so I don't know why they didn't really say what happened. So in the future, if anything like this would happen again, it's on record, but it's not. I don't know why Tesla did that. Some other things that happened: January 2023, so less than 1 year later, his odometer was at 35,143 miles. One of the power inverters went out. So basically an error message popped up on the screen and said that he had a limited, he couldn't drive at the full speed. I think he was limited to 70 miles per hour or something like that, and said that he needed to take it into the service center. And so he took it in. They covered it. Obviously they replaced the inverter. Everything was fine. But again, we wanted to make sure that we mention it. Every time that my dad took it into the service center, he wasn't charged a single thing because everything was under warranty. So we talked about that. Another thing that was weird, one day his trunk just wouldn't close. So very weird. He said open the trunk, it popped up really quick, and he couldn't get it to close. He ended up having to force it close, and he took it to Tesla. They fixed it. They fixed the power strut or something like that broke on it. Fixed it. Not a big issue. Yeah, so those were the 3 service issues that he had with the car. Again, like I said, everything was paid for, but again, just being fully transparent and talking about ownership of having this car for less than 3 years, but at 100,000 miles. Asked my dad if there was anything that he wished he would have, done differently, or anything that he's unhappy with about the car. And he's not unhappy about anything. The only thing that he doesn't like is the price that he paid for the Model 3, because unfortunately at that point in time, the demand was so high, so the cost was so crazy. And so now you can get Model 3s for a lot less money. They're a lot more inexpensive. So that's the biggest gripe that he has, which is what a lot of Tesla owners have, unfortunately, that turn of events and how that happened. But besides that, he says that he loves the car. But yeah, so again, it's my video review of the Tesla Model 3 after 100,000 miles. Just wanted to give you guys some insight on what ownership is like, some of the issues that my father had. Would he do it again? Absolutely. Pros and cons. Just laying it all out on the line so that you guys have more information. The most impressive thing to me, again, which is what I led with at the beginning of the video, is the fact that the battery health only dropped down by 15 points after 100,000 miles. That to me is crazy, right? Battery degradation is the #1 thing that everybody is worried about. Will be really interesting to see, if he eclipses the 200,000 mark, where his battery will lie. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know if there's anything else that you guys want answered, or if you guys have any other questions, please leave them down below. Till you guys see me again, peace.